What if the color on a prisoner's back was never about fashion and never about comfort, but about control? What if a single shade of fabric was chosen specifically to strip away identity, to make escape nearly impossible, and to warn every single person who sees it that the man or woman wearing it is considered dangerous? Most people assume the orange jumpsuit is just tradition, something prisons have always done. They're wrong. The truth behind that color is stranger, darker, and far more calculated than almost anyone realizes. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at that bright orange fabric the same way again. Prisons are not random places. Every rule, every uniform, every rigid schedule exists for a reason, usually a reason born from decades of mistakes, escapes, riots, and violence. The color orange is no exception. It's not decoration, it's a tool. And tools inside prison walls are designed with one goal in mind: control over chaos. To understand why orange exists, you first have to understand what came before it. And what came before it was a nightmare correctional officers still study today. For most of American history, prisoners didn't wear orange at all. They wore black and white stripes. That striped uniform wasn't chosen for comfort either. It was chosen because in the era before photography was common in law enforcement, authorities needed a way to instantly identify an escaped convict from a distance. Stripes broke up the human silhouette. They made a fleeing man impossible to mistake for anyone else. But here's the surprising fact almost nobody knows. Stripes eventually became a problem, not a solution. By the mid-1900s, prison reform movements began pushing back hard. Critics argued that striped uniforms dehumanized inmates, turned them into cartoonish villains, and made rehabilitation nearly impossible. How can a person believe they can change when society visually brands them as subhuman the moment they step outside? So prisons abandoned the stripes, and for a while, chaos followed. Without a distinct uniform, prisoners began blending into civilian populations far too easily during transport, work programs, and medical visits. Escapes that should have been caught within minutes were instead going unnoticed for hours. Correctional officers desperately needed a new system, one that solved the same problem stripes once solved, without the same reputation. That's when orange entered the picture. But why orange specifically? Why not red or yellow or blue? The answer comes down to human psychology and something known as visual conspicuity, the scientific measure of how easily an object stands out against its environment. Researchers studying emergency visibility, construction safety, and search and rescue operations had already discovered something critical decades earlier. The human eye detects orange faster than almost any other color, especially against natural backgrounds like grass, concrete, trees, dirt, and pavement. Search and rescue teams already used orange for life vests. Road crews used it for safety vests. Aircraft investigators used it for black box recorders, which despite the nickname are actually painted bright orange for the exact same reason. Prisons realized they could apply the same life-saving science to an entirely different purpose. Instead of helping rescuers find survivors, orange would help officers instantly spot an escaped inmate fleeing across a field, a parking lot, or a wooded perimeter. In other words, the same color designed to save lives during disasters was repurposed to prevent one specific disaster, a successful escape. But this is where the story gets darker, because the color orange doesn't just make escape harder. It was engineered to make an inmate feel something too. Correctional psychologists have long understood that clothing shapes identity. Take away someone's personal style, their preferred fit, their favorite fabric, their sense of individuality, and you take away a piece of who they believe they are. This is intentional. Prisons want inmates to internalize their new reality immediately. The moment someone puts on that jumpsuit, they are no longer a name. They are a number, a case file, a statistic inside a system built to process thousands of people exactly the same way. Former inmates have described the first time putting on the uniform as one of the most disorienting moments of their entire incarceration. Not because the fabric was uncomfortable, though it often is, but because of what it represented. The final confirmation that their old life had ended and a new controlled existence had begun. But here's something even more unsettling. Not every prisoner wears orange for the same reason. Many people assume orange is a universal prison color across the entire country. It isn't. In fact, the exact opposite is true. Uniform colors vary dramatically depending on jurisdiction, security level, and even legal status. And these differences are far more important than most people realize. In many county jails, orange is reserved specifically for pretrial detainees, meaning people who haven't even been convicted of a crime yet. They are legally presumed innocent, yet already dressed in a color designed to signal danger to anyone who sees them. Critics argue this creates a subtle but serious problem. Jurors, witnesses, and even courthouse staff may unconsciously view a defendant as guilty simply because of what they're wearing. This concern became so significant that the United States Supreme Court actually ruled on it. In the case Estelle v. Williams, the court determined that forcing a defendant to stand trial in visible prison clothing could violate their right to a fair trial, because it risked influencing the jury's perception before a single piece of evidence was presented. Think about that for a moment. A single color so powerful, so psychologically loaded, that the highest court in the country had to intervene. But the story doesn't stop there, because orange isn't just about pretrial status. In many facilities, it's also a warning label. Inside numerous state and federal prisons, different colors are assigned to different threat levels. Orange frequently marks inmates considered high risk, violent offenders, escape risks, or individuals involved in serious disciplinary infractions. In these systems, the moment a correctional officer sees orange from across a yard, they already know to be alert before a single word is spoken. Other colors carry their own hidden meanings. Khaki or tan often signals general population inmates serving standard sentences. Blue can indicate trustees, inmates who've earned limited privileges through good behavior. Red, in some facilities, marks individuals on suicide watch or under close psychiatric observation, allowing staff to identify at-risk inmates instantly during head counts. This color-coded system might sound organized on paper, but inside the walls, it creates a hidden social hierarchy few outsiders ever hear about. Inmates quickly learn to read these colors the same way officers do, and that knowledge can determine who they trust, who they avoid, and who they're warned to stay away from entirely. A single glance across a cafeteria can tell a prisoner more about the person sitting 3 tables away than an entire conversation could. But surprisingly, color isn't just a warning system between inmates and staff. It's also become a tactical weapon during emergencies. During a riot, a fire, a lockdown, or a mass transport, correctional officers face an incredibly difficult challenge, instantly distinguishing hundreds of individuals moving in chaos. Uniform colors solve this problem in seconds. An officer scanning a crowded yard during an emergency doesn't need to check names or numbers. They simply need to identify colors, threat levels, and locations in real time. This system has prevented incidents that could have escalated into disasters. When an alarm sounds, seconds matter. And color, more than almost anything else, buys those critical seconds back. Yet despite all this careful engineering, orange has developed something the system never intended: cultural power. Somewhere along the way, the orange jumpsuit stopped being just a tool of institutional control and became a universal symbol recognized far beyond prison walls. Television shows built entire narratives around it. News broadcasts use it as visual shorthand the instant a suspect appears in custody. Halloween costumes recreate it as an instantly recognizable villain aesthetic. Even people who have never set foot inside a correctional facility immediately understand what that color represents. This cultural shift created an unexpected consequence prison officials never anticipated. The uniform designed purely for practical visibility has become one of the most recognizable symbols of crime and punishment in modern society, carrying weight and stigma that follows former inmates long after they're released and long after they've changed out of that uniform for the very last time. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If a color can shape how millions of people instinctively judge someone's guilt, their danger, their worth as a human being, how much power should a single piece of fabric really be allowed to hold? Because behind every orange jumpsuit is a person, a specific history, a specific set of choices, circumstances, and consequences that a single color can never fully capture. The system built orange to solve a practical problem: visibility, safety, control. But somewhere between a Supreme Court ruling and a Halloween costume aisle, orange became something far bigger than anyone in a prison policy meeting ever intended. So the next time you see that color, whether on a screen, in a courtroom, or crossing a prison yard, ask yourself something most people never do. Would you have survived being reduced to nothing but a color and a number? If this video opened your eyes to what really happens behind prison walls, make sure you're subscribed, because what we're covering next goes even deeper into the hidden world most people never see.